Despite my newfound love for import gaming in the early 1990s, I was completely unaware at the time of a home computer released only in Japan called the Sharp X68000. Released in 1987 and running on a Motorola 68000 16-bit CPU, it used floppy disks for its software and games. There were a number of variations and upgrade modules available for it, and it had a rather impressive library of games. I wouldn't discover this thing until about 1998, when a fellow collector clued me into its existence and showed me a number of its games. To my utter shock and amazement, it had received a game in the Castlevania series, simply known as Akumajo Dracula, or Devil's Castle Dracula. Needless to say, I had to play it. It had been originally released in mid-1993, months before the PC Engine classic Rondo of Blood. Much like Super Castlevania IV before it, it was a retelling of the original story from the very first game. Simon Belmont must once again traverse the evil Count Dracula's castle and slay the great demon, in what might just be the hardest 16-bit Castlevania game of them all. From a graphic standpoint, this adventure falls just short of the other 16-bit versions. It has a number of really cool effects, some great color use, and the characters are all very well animated, but it lacks some of the things I tend to appreciate, like copious amounts of parallax scrolling, and some backgrounds tend to be really bland. It's an overall decent looking game that captures the look and feel of what Castlevania represents, however, and it definitely is not a bad looking game by any means. Since the X68000 was a modular computer capable of being upgraded in a number of ways, this game takes advantage of the various sound hardware that was available for it. You can rock out to the FM synthesizer, or to a few of the MIDI modules available. The soundtrack will always be the same regardless of which one you use, but changes in tempo and instruments can be clearly heard between the options. The music here is otherwise composed of familiar Castlevania tracks, some of them very well represented, and others a little bit muted for my taste. None of it sounds bad though, and it sounds different enough from what you've heard on other home consoles to be of interest. As with any Castlevania, it's the gameplay that tends to be the make or break feature that will determine your enjoyment of the game. It offers great challenge, with stage design, enemy placement, and boss fights that are all fun and different enough from past games to hold your interest. You have the ability to attack downwards and downwards at an angle, but lack the ability to do this upwards, a curious design choice. You also lack the ability to jump on and off stairs, which can be at times frustrating, especially when you have to take a hit from a bat or Medusa head coming at you and you can't avoid it. The aforementioned challenge can be overwhelming at first. Enemies are fast, well placed, and ruthless in their ability to hit you at will. You're gonna take a number of deaths before you recognize where you need to be in every scenario to avoid big damage. It's easily the hardest of the 16-bit era games, and will likely turn away many only a few stages in. Those of you that enjoy a big challenge should really appreciate it, however. Since a fully working Sharp X68000 is rare as rocking horse shit, and its games are crazy expensive, including this one, the easiest way to play this game today is to run down a copy of the PS1 game, Castlevania Chronicles. It contains the original X68000 version, as well as an upgraded arranged version of that game. Even this option is expensive, regularly selling for around $100 itself. If a digital option doesn't put you off, you can get this for both the PS3 and PSP for a mere $6. Every 16-bit Castlevania had its own look and feel, and the X68000 version here is no different. It has the challenge to keep you playing for quite a while, and its multiple sound options can help change things up while trying to finally kill the evil Count. The only area that I can really critique is the visual presentation. Backgrounds lack the polish of the Super Nintendo and PC Engine efforts, while the sprite work lacks the huge, multi-jointed wow factor of the Genesis game. None of that means that this effort isn't worth your time, especially if you thought the other 16-bit games lacked challenge. This is a solid effort that is unfortunately locked behind a limited number of physical releases. At least give it a go on an emulator if you can. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.